at lovedreamingbeach.com.
This is meant to be just a very quick update. So, look at that. I was right. I predicted that within less than 24 hours, the MAGA base would flip their shit and flip their script and come out in favor of whatever the fuck Donald Trump wants and says, because that is literally what they are there for. So yeah, they were like, oh my God, the Epstein files, blah, 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 blah. And lo and behold, less than 24 hours later, they shut their fucking mouths up and are like, why are you still talking about this? Oh my God. Just make it disappear. Poof! It's gone. But all this time I have been completely unable to wrap my brain around, nor to fathom, nor to comprehend, nor to discern or understand the why. Why would a cult of people who obviously don't give two shits about women or children being abused? Why? How do I know that? Because they literally voted in and love and worship an actual adjudicated rapist who is also a pedophile, because he has harmed 13-year-olds, and many of them, and I absolutely believe their stories. And so, but what I did not know, which I found out yesterday, if it's true, which is extremely believable to me, is what I learned about on, let me find it. Hold on, I just emailed it to my friend. Okay, so the YouTube channel, Narrative with Zev Shalev, and this investigation and research that he did was holy cow. Now, I will say one thing that I found extremely disturbing, which was during that video, he said the words about Virginia Giuffre. Well, she got to meet a prince, which I think is, I said in my comment, I really hope I misheard you, because what the fuck? She got to meet a prince? You mean she got raped? Who gives a fuck? I don't give a fuck if the guy is God. If you're fucking hurting me, I don't want to know you, and I wish I never met you. So that was weird, and I would take that with a little grain of salt there, okay? However, the gist of what he said and his research was that Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli asset, an agent who was hired specifically to go after Democrats, and specifically Bill Clinton, because the Israelis were afraid that Bill Clinton was going to broker a peace deal with Palestine and try to have peace and a ceasefire. And they didn't fucking want that. They don't want peace. They don't want to live side by side in peace. They want to genocide and kill all of the fucking brown people that they can and clear it out so they can make some resorts in Gaza, which is exactly what Trump said, which makes it ring true so fucking loud, it is deafening. So what he said was that the reason that MAGA was crazy, psycho, insanely obsessed about the files, the list, is because they believed, based on the propaganda lies that have been pushed forward to them by their Republicans and the MAGA politicians, Trump and all those people and the influencers and stuff, was that they thought the Democrats were covering up a giant cabal of a pedo ring, and that it was the Democrats' cabal of pedos and children being abused. And that is what they were insanely crazy about getting released. But if this is true, if this alleged stuff is true, what it actually was that Jeffrey was hired to target and go after Democrats to lure them into his pedo ring which he was actually funded by, and then there's all this shady stuff and all these multiple companies that he helped to dismantle, and then $450 million was sucked into him, and I forget the names at the moment, but there were some high players, very wealthy businessmen who funded him as well, which is, it is what I thought, as far as like, it's more about really rich people. However, so if it's true, his whole entire lifestyle was funded by these specific Israeli military people who were Epstein was trying to, like I said, target. He said the reason that there's Democrats on this list is not because it was a Democratic cabal of pedos, but because he was targeting Democrats and he was inviting them to his island. And I'm sure that many of them did do the things that he was inviting them to do. And they are, of course, criminals and should be prosecuted for whatever they did. But that the purpose was, in his island, there's cameras everywhere. And so he would invite these targeted Democrats, specifically Bill Clinton, because they were so afraid, and the specific words were, they were so afraid that he would be another Carter, Jimmy Carter, who would broker peace, and they didn't want peace. So the idea that the Israelis were willing to bring down any Democrat that would vote for peace against their Zionistic agenda, they wanted to get some bribe and extortion stuff so that they can, twist and bribe and get them to do what they want to do and get them to not do the things that they didn't want them to do. And he even suggested that Monica Lewinsky, that whole scandal may have not just simply been some horny guy taking advantage, not just simply sexual harassment in the workplace, but again, an attempt to bring him down, to make him less powerful, to create a situation where he could be bribed to not garner the peace in the Middle East. So I just thought that was really fascinating and terrifying and believable, that this is all about. Now, why would they cover it up? Why would the Republicans cover it up? Because they don't want, I guess, the public to know that actually many powerful people were working with the Israelis to destroy peace, because they want to be able to have resorts in Gaza, and they don't want to fucking have to do humanitarian shit, fuck those people, we want their land, just like they did here. Another side note, which was my own research, not really associated with this, but I feel like it's relevant to mention it now. When you try to compare certain horrors to the Holocaust, and now the word Holocaust is not unique to only that one particular Holocaust regarding the Jews. However, they have gate-kept that word. And again, this is Israeli propaganda, American propaganda, which is like Israeli propaganda, which is sausaged into this American propaganda, which is basically like, the Jewish Holocaust was so horrific, there was nothing ever as bad as that in the whole world. But the reality is that the indigenous people in this country, in America, there was like 54 million of them that were genocided to death. And the whole manifest destiny and like, we're here now, fuck y'all, we discovered this shit. Who cares if there's 600 million of you people living here in a society with a diverse culture and all that stuff? We don't care. We want it. It's ours. And you're brown, so fuck off, And they ran people out. They made people sick. And my good friend, who is 85 years old, and we were chatting today, and I mentioned it in our conversation, and he said that the Nazis actually learned from the Americans and how the Americans had systematically destroyed an indigenous culture to clear the land of the people, to depopulate it, and that Nazis learned how to get rid of the people they wanted to get rid of based on the practices that the Americans had done. Or I guess they were British at the time, British and American, you know. So isn't that a big bowl of shit for you to chomp on? And with all of that, I do believe that ultimately the reason Trump is covering it up is because he doesn't want to expose the absolute fucking disgusting depravity of his own people and of the Israeli allies. And, you know, you've got to remember, Donald Trump raped 13-year-olds with Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew raped Virginia Giuffre. So maybe the royal family is also in there in his DMs, like, shut the fuck up, you know. So also another note about Virginia Giuffre, who recently passed away, and it was said it was self-inflicted, and she had specifically said, I will never do this. If anything happens to me, you can be guaranteed that it was not me. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what she said. And what did they do? They reported it as self-inflicted and no investigation as far as I know. Maybe there is behind the scenes. I don't know. I can't really speak factually about that. But it seems like everywhere they're just like, oh yeah, she did it. She did it. Which I don't believe she did. And so am I surprised that they don't want Ghislaine Maxwell to discuss? Of course I'm not surprised. Do I think that she would have told the truth anyhow? No. She's going to say whatever the fuck she needs to say to put herself in the best light, probably blame everything on Epstein, or God knows what she would say. So do I think she should speak? I mean, I think instead of having her speak, it would make more sense to show what happened in the investigation and let the files speak for themselves. But they're not going to do that because they don't want the world to know. And that's what it comes down to. And this is already burning my eyes. And I've got a lot of work to get to. But I really just wanted to talk about this. I also wanted to say more has come out in Texas that it was the camp director. Oh, and I said his name was Strickland. It was Eastland. And apparently his family was so wealthy that Eastland, Texas is a place that was named after his family. And that they did fight to get the flood maps redrawn. So they didn't have to move any cabins. They just wanted to change the map. You know, like, oh, let's just change the paper. We just changed the paper. This is the, like, this is the line. No, we don't like that line. No, make it this way. There it is. Okay, fuck all these people, you know. And then also it was like $4,000 to $5,000 for a 2-week session, and they had 750 campers for the summer. So they're making like $3.5 million a summer. $3.5 million a summer, but you can't help pay for the proper safety protocols. And what about all the camps again? 27 white girls was talked about for days and days and days, but they didn't talk about what about all the kids who were not white, all the kids, people of color, who they got out safely. Some of them were hit first because of the way that the river ran. The river ran through it, and the people who were hit first were safe. And then Caraville being hit after, still not notified. So now that Dick Eastland is dead, you know, of course there's people who are like, oh my God, he was a hero. It's like, was he a hero? He died trying to save these girls who would have never been in that position in the first place had he not done all the fucking shit he did. So was he a hero, or was he dying trying to fix the fuck up that he fucked up and lost his life along with all those people? Again, do I think that Donald Trump created the flood? No, I do not. But I think that his administration fired many people who were the ones who would warn about it. And FEMA in general was redirected to create alligator Auschwitz in Florida and terrorize hardworking people and create concentration camps for American citizens, as well as people who are just trying to work and live a life and not be prosecuted or persecuted. And it's disgusting. It's despicable. My friend also told me there have been floodings all week in China, and I haven't seen anything about it on any of the stations I listen to. They don't talk about that either. That you've got to go to, you've got to go to this is a cute little fidget thing I got. You've got to go to news stations from other countries to find out about a lot of stuff because they just won't report it here. And also that there was at least 3 minutes chopped out of that so-called prison cell footage, security footage, but that, it's been modified, and many people are like, oh, the files are gone, they're destroyed, they'll never be found, as if there's probably like one copy only. Really, you think there's only one copy? I doubt it. But anyway, those are the thoughts that I had, and yeah, so I do think that they're going to squash it because, well, first of all, the MAGA base is incredibly cult, brainwashed, do whatever, say whatever, I will bend over, I will bend into a pretzel, I will do anything you want me to, Daddy Trump. Trumpy bumpy, just tell me what to say and I'll say it. And that's what they're doing. And, and isn't it interesting how it flipped from the MAGA base is crazy about this Epstein shit, and then the next day the MAGA base is like, we don't fucking care, stop talking about it, and the Dems are sitting there like, we're trying to vote for you to expose this, and the Republicans are like, no. And now here the Democrats are like, just like that, MAGA flipped the shit. Now the Democrats are the ones who are like out in the cold, like, we want to know, and they're like, it doesn't matter anymore. And it will not, like, just like weapons of mass destruction didn't exist, and I was able to find that information at the time it was happening. I was able to find reports and people who were reporting on it, but it didn't matter. It wasn't in the mainstream media. It wasn't in legacy media. And he went ahead and fucking attacked Iraq anyway. And then after the fact, whoopsie doodles, there was no weapons of mass destruction. And that was when I really was like, fuck politics, because this is bullshit, because, they do and say whatever the fuck they want. And it doesn't matter what's true. And why would that be any different today? So there are people who can do investigations and they can uncover the truth, like this what was his name? Narrative with Zev Shalev, okay? So maybe what he's saying is accurate, that Jeffrey Epstein and take it back a little bit further. Ghislaine Maxwell, her father was Robert Maxwell. He was apparently an Israeli spy asset as well. He was found dead in 1991, naked and stiff, drowned in the water off of his yacht. Apparently Jeffrey Epstein was on that fucking yacht at the time. Trump knew them too. So Trump and Epstein had the same banks. Let me see if I can find this little list. Here's a little screen. Well, it's not a screenshot. I'm just like, there's my computer. So this is from the special report, The Secret Life of Jeffrey Epstein. It's an hour and a minute into this hour and a half coinkydinks. So Trump used the Deutsche Bank reel. Epstein was in the Deutsche Bank estate division, private banking. Bill Barr and Bill Barr's father, Bear Stearns, Alan Ace Greenberg. So these are connections. This bank apparently was like good for people who did shady shit. So there's all these coincidences linking them. Apparently, here, I'll show this. Okay, he's talking about Epstein collapses, specialists, 27 years of crisis exploitation from 1981 to 2008. And then you've got, let's see, Bear Stearns. Can you see it? I don't know if you can really read it. But so these were the companies that he helped to dismantle and then somehow kept the money. Hold on, wait a sec. So somehow that's how he got his money. Plus he was funded by, like I said, those wealthy business people who had their own interests. So, also, here was another little clip where they're showing how in both New York as well, I guess this is just showing Mar-a-Lago. They lived super, super close to each other, like a mile and a half apart from each other. And then in New York, they also lived very close together. So like north, south coastal buddies, like we hang out and party down in Miami. We hang out and party up in New York. We fly all around. He also said that Trump was not a target of this whole operation because they were besties. And Trump was, although Trump was a Democrat at the time, like I said, all of the corresponding connections that they were connected and all the literal orgies they shared together and all this stuff. And again, as I've said, how sickening and gross that the reason they broke up was not because of any of those sick and twisted and perverted things, but because Trump went behind Epstein's back and outbid him on a property and estate that he had been wanting to buy, some beachfront estate. And that pissed off Epstein so much. And I also had heard a rumor that Trump was the one who had tipped off the feds or whatever because he was pissed off at Epstein, but I don't know if that's true. I also read that it was actually the mother of a 14-year-old girl who had called to say that Epstein had molested her daughter, and that was what tipped them off. But I don't know, I don't know. So those are my thoughts for today. I think this whole thing is fucking crazy. It's evil. It's perverted. It's despicable. And most likely it will stay under the rug, under the radar. And while many people may discover the truth, it will likely be suppressed by all major agencies, all major stations, and, it'll be relegated to conspiracy theory forever. What do you think? I cannot forget to mention the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was only in prison for a month, 36 days. Who would take their own life in that short amount of time, knowing that the first time he got off in an incredibly light sentence because of his bestie Trump helping him? And here it was, his bestie was the president. So why wouldn't he have all the hope in the world that he was going to get off? He also said on July 23rd, he was found with an orange piece of fabric around his neck, and he said that the guy in the cell was the guy who tried to kill him. The guy in the cell said, no, I was asleep and he was doing that shit and they woke me up. I was like, what's going on? They never proved it. And 10 days later, or 2 weeks later, on August 10th, Jeffrey is dead. So he's arrested and within 4 weeks, he's dead? It makes no sense. And then I saw another video of a guy who was in that cell saying, there is literally nothing to hang yourself from. There's no bunk. There's nothing on the ceiling. There's nothing you could do that with unless you were getting help. Assisted suicide. In other words, murder. That's what I think.
LoveDreamingPeach.com